Hi, how are you? Good morning if you're taking this class in the morning, good afternoon. If you're taking the class in the afternoon, good evening. If you're taking this class in the evening, shall I say good night? Okay, welcome again for this class. And in the series of 4 classes, we are going to talk of one topic. It was already taught in class, is human reproductive system. The topic is narrow, but also very wide and deep. And throughout this, I have chopped it into pieces to have 4 different items. The first part will talk of female reproductive system. Then we'll talk about male reproductive system. We'll talk about fertilization, and we'll also talk about reproductive health. So may God bless you as we move together. Let's move on. Let's move on. So if you check a close look of male and female reproductive system, they look more of like that. You can see that there's a difference, but there's some similarities. Can you check this over here? The one on top is a female reproductive system. There's reproductive tract as complete as it is, and this one is male reproductive system. And let's check the female reproductive system into detail. The female reproductive system has the oviduct, which is the fallopian tube. It has the uterus, which is over here. It has the it's a urinogenital, that the urinary system is over there. There's a urinary bladder is over here. Urethra is there. Other parts as labeled as there. You can have a look on them. But if you move forward together, you can. It is similar as the male counterpart, whereas there's similarity and there are some differences. Whereas in the female reproductive system, we have an ovary over here. In the male reproductive system, there are testicle. You see that the difference? Let me take you back. There's an ovary in the female reproductive system, and there are 2. And there are testicles in the male reproductive system, and there are 2. You can notice. Here is the male reproductive system, and that is the female reproductive system. So you can see some similarity. 2 ovary, 2 testicles. So there are 2 pouches. Are they different? There are 2 pouches. Whereas in the male reproductive system, there are 2 testicles. In female reproductive system, there are 2 ovaries. But there's also some other differences. The male reproductive system, there's a huge part of it is hanging out there, as you can see here. But in the female reproductive system, most of the part is within the body. And if you can notice, is that the male reproductive system is meant in a way that there's the issue of temperature regulation. We will notice that as we move on in the male reproductive system. Now, usually they all start inside the body, and the testicle usually descend before the child is usually born. And male or female, that's a debate, or that's a point we can argue. Is it male or is it female? Usually fetus begins to start with starter parts, and which can either develop into male or female. Somewhere around week 7 of the pregnancy, the baby's body is told by its DNA to become either male or to become female. The unused part usually disintegrate, and the used part usually continue to develop. And that is what makes any of us either male or female. So it is the genetic makeup of a fetus that makes or determine the gender. But the gender is usually determined or created, start to be created in week 7 of the fetal development. In the coming lessons, we will check on the development of the fetus, something to do with that. So what's the difference? The difference is that the DNA is the one that determines, whereas XX is female and XY is male. Depends on which egg and sperm go together. That's what makes literally whether one should be male or should be female. Some people have been complaining, this woman is only giving me girls and boys, or this and this and that. Unfortunately, that should not be a father, because a father is usually, the DNA from a father is the one which usually determine the genetical makeup of a gender in a baby's gender. So for those who complain, I think the woman should be in a better position to complain than a man. Well, that's more social than biological. Okay. So when you talk of anatomy similarities, in a male, it is not complicated. Male usually produce sperms, they produce them. With female, they are usually born with the primary oocytes which are not developed. A man usually can be able to produce at least 2 to 4 million of sperms every day. But in the case of anatomy and similarities, with the function, it's different. With female, that's very complicated. There's one egg every month, and there's careful coordination of hormones, and the body is usually prepared for that, and the timing must be perfect. With men, there's no timing. Anytime a man can be a father. With female, the timing is more perfect, because it must be perfect, because there's a window of fertility in a certain period in a month. The rest is not fertile period. So we're checking on anatomy similarities, that they could be similar, but the function are very different. Whereas we have noted that men are not, their system is not very complicated. When you talk of complications, we mean of more items and more things that influence the system. Because in female, we can notice that there are several hormones that usually coordinate or makes the female reproductive system work. Now, let's dig in deeper in the female reproductive system. If we check on a female reproductive system as it is there, female reproductive system, oh yeah, female reproductive system, we can check there. The female reproductive system has the uterus. Fortunately, I have a model over here. There's a model. I don't know if you can see it. There's a model over here, which is basically the female reproductive system. As you can see it here, you have a uterus is over here, and the opening between the vaginal canal and the uterus is called the cervix. Here you have the ovaries. They are located somewhere there. Over here you have the urinary bladder over here. You also have the rest of the parts. The endometrium usually build up inside here, and as you can see, the labeling, all those are the parts of the female reproductive system. And Now, if we go on the female reproductive system, we have the ovaries. These are usually two pouches which contain ova. A woman is usually born with at least 400,000 primary oocytes, which can be developed into an ova or an egg. But during her entire life, she usually start ovulating from puberty and stop ovulating on menopause, which makes more tricky, but in the sense that she only uses 500 eggs only, roughly, but the rest will not be developed. So if any woman thinks that I'm going to give birth until I finish the eggs, that is not true, because one woman is able to fill the entire Arusha region with 400 primary oocytes which are not developed. If we could have developed them and distribute to different women, they could give birth to over 400 children. So the eggs won't run out. Okay. Now, but the ovulation usually occur once a month. That is the point. Once in a month, an egg is usually released and to the oviduct, which is expected by then to be fertilized there. After ovulation, the egg is pushed along by the cilia, and few days it travels and arrives to the uterus. But usually, if the egg is released somewhere over here, now it has to travel from here until it gets into the uterus. The implantation has to happen somewhere inside there. Now, you can notice that the opening to the uterus is called the cervix. It is this gate over here which connects the uterus and the vaginal canal. That gate is what is called the cervix over here. And now the opening between the uterus and the vagina is called the cervix. It's usually intact and normally tiny, and usually at birth the muscles usually pull and open, and that's cervix, the dilation, which allows the baby to pass as the woman usually give birth during labor. And let's talk about something else, the menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle is usually run by several hormones, a combination of 10 to 12 chemicals. These are called hormones. Usually there's one egg once a month, and it's all about timing. Uterus must be ready, and the egg gets in case the egg is fertilized, the uterus must be ready to harbor the growth of the fetus. The fertilization should take place in the fallopian tube, and the implantation takes place within the uterus. So you can notice that the fallopian tube are very narrow, but the uterus has enough space. If there's no fertilization, then the tear down of the lining usually happens, and that is when we start to count the menstruation cycle, day 1, and then followed by rebuilding, and then extra nutrition, and then if there's no fertilization, back to stage 1. It works like this. The cycle is of 28 days. It can be short to 26, it can be long to 32, but the average is usually 28, the average of menstrual cycle. Where do you start counting it? You start counting it from the first stage, the second stage, and the third stage. The first stage is usually tear down, which is the menstruation period. The day 1 to day 5 some will go to day 7. That is menstruation. So the first day of menstruation, that's the first day of the cycle. Then followed by rebuilding. And then there'll be menstruation, then the endometrium will rebuild itself. Excuse me. And then there'll be some extra nutrients for the blood, for potential for the baby, if there'll be implantation or fertilization. And if there's nothing like that, then the tear down will follow, again menstruation the second time. So it goes like this. There are several hormones which usually control the menstrual cycle, such as estrogen, progesterone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, and many more other hormones. Apart from that, so let's check these 3 phases of menstruation or menstrual cycle. And the first day, usually day 1, the first menstrual blood usually falls and tissue. That means there was no fertilization in the previous cycle, and this is the breakdown of the lining of the uterus usually happens. The blood flow and tissue quietly in the period of 5 to 7 days, and this usually is followed by another phase, which is pre-ovulation. The first day to 5 day is expected to be bleeding up to 7 days, but ovulation will come on day 14. So start with menstruation followed by pre-ovulation. Now on day 14, that is the middle of the cycle, ovulation usually happens. Now one should not expect, okay, I will avoid day 14 because that's the has ovulation, and probably you'll go for other days if one is trying to avoid fertilization. But remember that if it's about fertilization, then there's pre-ovulation. If there's been potential of unprotected sex on day 14, the chances that this person, more chances is that the partner will be pregnant. But remember that the sperm can be able to be viable and alive in the body of a woman for up to 3 days and so. Even if the conjugal act has happened before day 14, there are chances to have pregnancy as close as you approach day 14, or as close as you move out of day 14. So ovulation usually happens on day 14, which means one can be able to get pregnancy if there will be fertilization. The temperature usually strikes slightly higher, and most fertile in the next few days, and one can be able to get pregnant. And if the egg get fertilized while traveling through the oviduct, then it will come and implant itself in the uterus. But followed day 14, it is post-ovulation. If one will want to know when ovulation will come, usually one can be able to measure temperature. If a woman is writing down body temperature the moment she wakes up in the morning, before she does anything, test temperature, write it down. As she's approaching day 14 in the middle of the cycle, as she's approaching in the day 14, this one will have temperature striking slightly higher than average. Now, if there's a fertilization, the zygote begins to divide and it travels through the oviduct and implants itself in the uterus. If there's no fertilization, The egg travels through the oviduct into uterus and usually exits in tissue during the next menstruation cycle. Now, we have talked about the cycle of a woman. We have talked about the menstrual cycle, and I'll talk to something to do with birth control pills. Usually, birth control pills, some or most of the birth control pills, they trick the body of a woman to think it's pregnant. There will be extra hormones, there will be no ovulation that occurs. If there's no any ovulation, that means there will be no egg which is ready to be fertilized. If there's no egg which is ready to be fertilized, that means there will be no baby. There will be no fertilization, and then there will be no pregnancy. And that's what exactly happens in birth control pills. In our coming class, we'll talk of the male reproductive system, lesson 9. This was a lesson 8, which we covered the part of female reproductive system. I'll see you in the coming class. May God bless you.